Welcome to Smart Franchising with FranSmart. I'm Dan Rowe, and I've masterminded the ascent of local favorites to global dominators. This isn't your usual get-to-know-you chat. We're diving deep. We're revealing the raw truths about franchise wealth building. With over 30 years in the trenches, I'm spilling it all. If you have an appetite for unfiltered tales and the hidden blueprints of franchise prosperity, buckle up. We're diving in. All right, welcome back to Smart Franchising with FranSmart. Today we're talking with my good buddy Amer Wahab, of Kettlemans Bagels about how on earth they do $5 million a unit. Amer's a friend, and I'm amazed at the story. One crazy location, 5 million location in Ottawa, Canada, brings in capital, expands into a multi-unit business, into multi-markets like into Toronto. And then COVID hits and nearly sinks the company. Company's bleeding cash, and today they're profitable. So today, they have a couple different formats, but a lot of work on the part of Amer and his team. So, my opinion is Kettlemans could be the next Tim Hortons, especially now that it's sold to the group it's sold to. But there's so much to learn here. So, Amer, how are you? Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dan. I'm doing great, thank you.
So how about a little bit of your background before you joined Kettlemans and then the Kettlemans story?
Well, I think like many, I think the hospitality bug bit me quite early. My first memory is cleaning out a old Hobart potato peeler. I was 4 years old, sitting up on a stack of flour and cleaning that out. And my father told me never get into this business. And lo and behold, they didn't listen. And here we are today. But through that journey, I've been able to work with some great brands, part of Freshie, where you and I was walking out, you were walking in, Five Guys. And I think that's the same scenario. You were walking out, I was walking in. And then you and I got to tango a bit together at Big Smoke Burger. And here we are today. And I think so it's been, I say, a 17-year relationship. Of growing and getting to know each other. Yeah.
Good. So how about Kettlemans? For anyone who's never heard of it, give the whole story.
Kettlemans was founded in 1993. So, we were going on 31 years, and it's more than just bagels. And it's hard for me to describe it, and people to really understand it. Because when you think of a bagel shop, you think of a traditional bagel shop, right? You're thinking something that's a little dungeony and whatnot. And we're more of a sandwich shop. We just happens to do it on the bagels that we hand roll. Like this recipe that we use dates back to how bagels were made in Krakow, Poland. Before they came over to Canada, before there was a New York bagel, there was what we now call a Montreal bagel, which is really the traditional format and how a bagel came. It's a little more dense. It's not as thick. And it's a great option especially if you're working out. And we happen to do it on sandwiches. So, you can see behind me, we take what would normally be a deli sandwich, but we put it on a bagel and use that as the delivery device. And it's done great.
So when I first met you guys, when I first heard about the concept, I had heard it was doing like $5 million, and the space isn't very big, right? How big was the original location?
So I think back then, I was about 2016. That's when I was brought aboard. I was the hired gun, and it's about interior space. There's about 2,200 square feet, and it was doing about 4.1 million. We had the fridge and freezer actually on the outside of the building. Because we ran out of space. The store wasn't built to do $4 million. It was built to do, $1.8 million to $2 million, which is, it did. The original footprint of that store up until 2014 was 1,800 square feet total with the fridge and freezer outside. So we added some seating, a four-season patio, which allowed us to create more throughput.
And so at its peak, that original store did how much volume?
Last year would be the peak, 5.3 million.
So let's, before we get into the rest of it, 5.3 million out of 2,500-ish feet now, right? So it's $2,000 a foot in sales. So how the hell are you doing $2,000 a foot in sales of a concept that's past its grand opening, right? You sometimes that happens when it's the new game in town. But what do you guys do from a guest experience? Those are customers voting with their wallets. Like, what is it about? What is it you guys are doing that makes people keep flocking in like that?
Consistency, and you don't change the secret sauce, right? And I think that's where a lot of brands, I think, lose who they are. We still make the bagel the same way we made it in 1993. We actually bake and roast our own meats. Our smoked Atlantic salmon is farmed in Atlantic salmon. And so we don't compromise what we did and how we did that made us great to try to save a few dollars. We've just stuck to it. And with that, people got accustomed to quality. And, the expression of value used, but when I was younger, I think value was, I can get 2 chocolate bars for 75 cents. Today, value is, right? And today's consumer, they're smart, they're savvy. They get it. Value is quality, the quality of the ingredients used, the process in which it's made. Do they do things that are ethical, like our Atlantic farmed salmon? Did you know that most Atlantic salmon is actually farmed in Chile? So we didn't, save $10 a kilo. We didn't go that route. We stuck to who we were. We gave great service, great product, and the rest is easy.
Nobody knows what a kilo is, but
2.2 pounds. Everybody in Canada knows.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. But so it's safe to say, like, while everyone around you is dumbing down their concept in their guest experience, you just keep doing it at a quality level, and your sales have gone from 4 million to 5 point something million at a time.
Well, I think we don't, that's one of the things. Don't complicate the menu, but don't lose who you are. A few summers ago, we were at Prosper Forum, and I had the chance to sit down with the former CEO of RBI, Jose Sell. And I got to know him because of some people that I knew who are major franchise players here in Canada with the Tim's brand. And he said, what do you think we need to do? And I said, I think you need to go back to basics. You need to go back to what you are fundamentally known for. You guys used to make donuts fresh in store. People could smell that. And I think that's like one of the driving successes behind like Krispy Kreme is that they make it in store. They got away from their chicken soup, let's say, which I thought was fabulous at Tim's. They got away from that original recipe. They used to be coffee, donuts, soup. Today, you go into a Tim Hortons, you can find pizza. So, my message to anybody who's in this is those sparkly things may look exciting and tempting. Don't veer away from who you are.
Yeah. Well, and then it's a good segue. And then you guys were so successful, as it happens with anyone that's successful, you guys are popular and people start approaching you. And so capital partners approached you and gave you kind of an open checkbook. So talk about, and that was obviously in the beginning, it's euphoric and it's fun and we're growing, we're going to be $1 billion, but maybe walk everyone through the good part of that journey before we get into COVID.
Absolutely. In my past life, having dealt with private equity, it was a challenge, I would say. But this group that we're with in the Walter Capital, they're out of Montreal. They truly believe in investing in entrepreneurs and founders and helping them scale their business. These guys are in for the long haul. Like everybody has an agenda, right? But it's about, being transparent on what it is. And that because private equity wants to make money. Let's not kid ourselves. And that's why we're all doing what we do. But trust in your partners, I think is key. And I think a lot of people get in with private equity or an angel investor, and there isn't that trust. And I think that causes more opportunities than not. These guys came in, they said very simple, we want to see you grow. We love what you do. Now, can we do it at a larger scale? And, they came in at a time when we only had three stores. And I think three stores, and our AUV was about, at the time, 3.2 million, because, we had the Behemoth carrying the load, our first initial store, and the other two, they needed some ramp up time. Um, and they said, hey, don't change it. Just let's grow this and let's make it money. And timing for that was great at the time. But then COVID showed up.
Where did you grow? So, like, what happened after you got the money? You opened what stores where?
Well, so, we do this deal with them in early 2019. We start looking at real estate, and then we start signing real estate. And in February of 2020, and come March, the whole world goes into a lockdown.
Oh crap! You got your money a month before COVID. I didn't realize that. I thought there.
Just a few months before COVID. And then we went and, we didn't know COVID was happening in February when we signed that lease at Etobicoke. And lo and behold, we did the first thing. And I would say this to anybody who's opening up any restaurant: get your sign permit first. And you put up that sign, and it doesn't matter how delayed your construction is, at least you're advertising who you are.
That's a good idea.
And we put up that sign. We went for application beforehand. We submitted the sign permit before we did the construction. And so we were able to get that turned around fairly quickly because the government didn't shut down at that point. And we put a sign up, I would say, in the end of April, and we didn't open that store until December because of the COVID parameters and the construction rules. And so, it taught us a lesson. It taught us a valuable lesson. And I think it's something that I would also share with anybody is EBITDA is important, but cash is king. Because when those things happen, you need cash. It does not matter how much EBITDA your business is making. If you don't have the right kind of cash flow, you will sink. And our first expansion with our partners was in the beginning of COVID. So right there in 2020. And I'll tell you, we opened a second store in 2022 in the GTA, and a third store in 2022 in Canada, Ottawa, just outside Ottawa. So predominantly most of our growth, so our 5 stores were done post signing, and 4 out of the 5 were in the heart of COVID.
Yeah. And the one I saw was downtown Toronto, which got obliterated during COVID. So how bad was it? Like, how bad were the dark days?
I will tell you, so when we opened up that store in Etobicoke, which in 2020, its first full year, it did $4.6 million. There was a pent up demand from people, right? Because it was a new concept. They saw it being advertised. We did a good push on social. And we were able to open because we supply a very small amount, less than 10% wholesale to Costco's and other grocery stores within Ontario. That gave us the right to be able to open our stores because we were deemed a necessity, an essential service. And so we leveraged that, and we're able to do really well. So when we opened up Bathurst, that's the store we call it. It's up front in Bathurst, downtown Toronto. It did well. What shocked us was the amount of third-party delivery, because during COVID you could not live without it. And that store did about 30% of its $3 million revenue in third-party delivery. So you're talking $900,000, and then you're seeing the costs associated with that doing third-party. And we looked at each other and we said, if people don't want to walk in our doors, then they're going to have to pay. It's the unfortunate truth. And we would rather guests come in the stores, and if you're not going to, We did it. We that 25% fee, we built it into the price, and the needle didn't move.
Wow. So think about that. So many people have a hard time reconciling the off-premise fees. In your case, you passed all of them to the customers, and the customers didn't blink.
Not one. And we actually the whole thing. We used to do about 9% overall system with third party, and today we're at the height of COVID, we were at 19. Today we're at 15% of our business. 15%. So you can't run your business and say, I'm going to lose money or only make 2 or 3 points. Because as you know, in this business, this is a business of pennies. And you're trying to get 10 to 12 of them for every dollar that comes in that door. So if consumers want things, consumers are willing to pay for convenience. And so 100%, we passed it off. And in that, the lesson, we learned that there are some consumers that, I'll say, take advantage in the system that third party has, and they file, I'd say fraudulent, reports of not receiving items, which actually hurts us, the operator, because they're getting all this refunded. Well, we went out there and looked and said, there has to be a software, because we were doing it manually. There has to be some software out there. Lo and behold, we found something called Super Order. And I would say it has been a godsend, because it runs in the background and AI driven to help you, the operator, report some of these activities, and gets you back about, I think it's 65% is what we're averaging as a return.
So better explain that. What's 65%?
So let's say we make $10,000 in one of our stores in a week in Uber revenue, right? And then you have 10 people who complain and say, I did not receive the order as received. On our side, we have a lot of checks and balances, including video footage, to reconcile orders via POS and camera. It can track the POS to camera what the order number is. So we're able to go in and verify it. And it's a very manual process to see, did we bag that bagel sandwich with that drink? Yes. And it was handed off to a driver. Well, that individual claims they never received their sandwich. They would file a complaint with Uber, and Uber would give them all their money back.
The chargeback, yeah.
So again, because it's 15% of our business. So on a store that does, $5 million, if you have, $2,000 a week in chargebacks, it hurts. So that's essentially your profit gone. And you're back to that situation where you're not making money.
And so what does Super Order do?
So Super Order runs in the background, and it goes through all the orders, right? All the chargebacks, and it starts addressing it with the third-party delivery partners and giving explanations and whatnot. And it's our third-party partners have a question with regards to that, saying like, hey, we're not going to give you that one. We will then physically look up that order, show them via video proof or documentation that, hey, it left our building. So we went from losing, let's say, the $2,000 a week at a store to actually getting back about $1,700 of that.
Wow. That's great. What's it cost? What does Super Order cost?
They're very, so let's say out of that 1,700 we get back, they take a small cut.
Okay. So it's
percentage based, and you can negotiate that based upon volume.
Nice. Well, that's cool, man. That's another good tip. I appreciate that. So good. So what are some lessons that you guys learn? Like, even though, because now, I know you guys had some dark days and then you're profitable now, but like, run us through what went wrong and how you fixed it all.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things is again, realizing cash is more important than EBITDA. And then the amount of revenue we lost during training processes. So we said, what are we doing wrong here? Right? So we can figure out what we're doing right. And attrition, right, um, is a killer in our business. And, there's restaurant concepts out there, um, like Tim's and McDonald's, who have a 90% plus attrition annually. So the hidden cost of labor was the fact that we were recycling people about 85 to 90% of the time, which in our industry, 85% to 90 is kind of average. If you're less than 85, you're good. So we took some steps back and we said, okay, who are the best people we have? That's the first thing. Let's understand that. From that, going back and thinking this, a lesson that was learned and somehow filed and forgotten, from PALS, Excellence Institute, hire for attitude. Somewhere along the lines, we forgot that. So I think it's very important to recalibrate, what made you great, and check on that often. Today, our attrition, our year end was September. We just got the numbers in. Our attrition on an annual basis is 37%. It's absolutely unheard of. And 100% of it goes back to culture. And the culture we have is, culture one trumps strategy. So you can think you want to do whatever it is, but if you don't have the culture and the people there who believe in what you're doing and believe in your mission, you will not succeed. I can guarantee that. And so we said, we're going to hire for attitude. We can teach people to make sandwiches. That's not hard, right? And then we're going to implement something to ensure, right, that they're constantly learning, because it doesn't matter if you could practice all you want, but if you're not practicing perfect, you're wasting it. You're not going to achieve it. So we put in this preach, teach, test, follow up, follow up, follow up. So we talk about how we're going to do it, right? We show them how to do it. Then we have them do it for us, correct, have them do it for us again. And once they've mastered that, follow up and constantly being there. And it's not complicated today. It's not, we used to have to go and physically follow up. Today, it's very simple. They all have, a phone, a mobile device, a laptop, and, leverage a LMS, so a learning management software, and have it built so that every individual has to do a follow-up to their training. And I'd rather pay somebody, an hour and a half every 6 months, right, for them to do this follow-up than to have to incur the cost of replacing them, which could be $7,000 per employee. So when you think about an organization, let's say of our size, 360 people working with us every day. If we had to replace each one of them in an annual, that's $2.1 million. Is my math okay there? On my top of my head, 7,000 times 3.
So let's get into that. So that's one of the reasons also that your sales are high, right? Because customers come in, they want high functioning restaurants, they want good staff, engaged staff, and then they'll come back, right? And all we really want is what they were, right?
Yeah,
and they
I was going to say that gives you the consistency, Dan. If you're not replacing people, then there's no loss. And I really feel the biggest cause of attrition is the lack of training. Because if you get people to do things right and you pay them what they're worth, they will be here forever. We have our average hourly team is 4 years in. That means there's people who are longer and some that are less. But on average, our store in Etobicoke, 70% of the staff at that store is still there.
Yeah. Amer, so many restaurant guys try to pay as little as they have to pay for staff, right? So give them some good advice.
I'll give you for instance. We had an employee. She was working for us. She started in September, and she wanted to learn because, again, we went back to hiring for attitude, right? We want people who want to learn and grow. She was a college student. Hired her in September. She had mastered so many things by December that minimum wage here at the time was $14. By December, she was at 15. By May, so we're talking 6 months, she was at 16.50. So within 6 months, she made $2 more per hour. By a full year, she was at 17.50, and she was the lead floor supervisor. And we had her for 3 years, her whole university tenure. So people are like, well, that's a lot of money. You're paying them, about 25% more than what minimum wage is. I did not replace that individual once. And that person's attitude, because she was getting paid well, right? That attitude becomes infectious, and everybody wants to do great. So imagine, we looked at it and we said, hold on a second. We used to have to be able to run a Saturday where we would do about $20,000 on a Saturday, with I'd say 80% of that happening between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m. Okay. We used to run that with 16 people. By changing the culture and changing how we did things, right? We cut it down to 13. We were investing back in our people. We got the best out of them. So it may have cost us, let's say, the same as having 16, but the team was happier and healthier at 13. And we were happy to share, that extra with them to ensure that culture was maintained.
But to sum up, I mean, really the secret of your success, the reason that you're successful and profitable and all that is because you pay your people well, you treat them well, and you focus on things that keeps low turnover.
Hands down. And one of the other things we do, and I've said this a few times to a few other people, and it's hard to grasp. I personally will do a stay interview with several of our team members. When they're here for about 2 years, I want to sit down with them and say, thank you. You've been here for 2 years. I appreciate it. What do you love about us? What do you hate about us? What can we do better? The amount of information that you get from your frontline team is priceless. And it allows you to make little things, little decisions that actually transform their lives, so they have a more comfortable time. There was a period when tech was flooding in, and we didn't know it was flooding in. We were just, every couple months, we're launching a new tech stack, a new app, a new item. Sitting there, they're like, it's too much. We're like, what do you mean it's too much? It's too much. We get that it helps us, but you got to spread it out. A new thing every 2 months is hard for us to learn and perfect. So we said, 100%, you're right. I'd find that difficult. So we said, okay. We said, we're only going to launch something new once a quarter, and we're not going to launch anything after it unless they've perfected the first one. So, our business has evolved from pen and paper to apps that track things like a Zenput would track, your time temperatures and tasks and whatnot. So implementing all that kind of tech, I'd say don't rush into it and listen to your people. So I think listening to the people, hiring people who have the right attitude, and great people in the end will attract other great people. You don't have to go far to look for the next best employee. Go to the best employee you have and say, do you have any friends? Then you're not paying Indeed ads. You're not paying recruiters. So it's a series of aggregate gains is what we did in order for us to become profitable. It wasn't one magic strike.
But it's smart when you mentioned we do essentially, instead of doing exit interviews with people that are leaving that tell you all the things you could have done better to keep them, you're doing exit interviews with your internal people, and just so that they don't leave. That's smart.
Stay interviews.
Yeah, stay interviews. Yeah, exactly.
That's it. Stay interview. And I'll tell you, the other thing is just leading back to what is one of the other things that helped make us profitable in that, and I think it's with growth comes the illusion of, if I can get 8 more seats into a space, I can generate an extra $2,000 a week. You got to do the math on that. That extra 8 seats may mean you require an extra 300 square feet with your CapEx. You're now looking at $150,000 investment. Well, even if you have great margins, right? Um, if you're doing $100,000, let's say, in extra revenue annually because of those 8 seats, at 40% margin, you're you're 40K, right? And you have to pay rent on that 300 square feet. So there's another $18,000 roughly, right? $50 a square foot, we'll say. So it's about roughly 15 to 18 with all the additionals. Well, you take that out of your 40, you're now down to, 22,000. You just took your ROI on that 150K to make 300 more square feet. That ROI is over 5 years. Why don't you take that 150K and open a second store, right? Put that as your down payment. Leverage the financial institutes to help you grow. And that, I think, was a lesson. Bigger is never better.
No. Hey, what's the plan for the company? Like, where are you guys going? I mean it when I say you guys could be the next Tim's. Canadians are like crazy fanatics, loyal for Canadian brands. And Tim's, I like Tim's too. But you can argue it's not, it's sort of not the same brand it was. And different owners, right? Different coffee. And so, but I just wonder, like, you guys, are you doing some things to the concept that make it easier to scale? And if so, what are you doing?
Absolutely. So, we sell bagels by the dozen. We sell bagel sandwiches. Our traditional stores were in suburban areas, and people would come in to buy bagels and they'd notice sandwiches. Over time, that shifted. People come in to buy sandwiches and leave with bagels. We bake in store. It's a very open operation. You saw it right there in front of you. We have wooden Shebas, they're called. They're like paddles to move the bagels in and out of the wood-fired oven. Well, when we opened up Front and Bathurst, we were having an average ticket of about $15 at all our other stores at the time. When we opened up Front and Bathurst, our average ticket was $11. And then we looked and we're like, the mall doesn't work. We had the same traffic as the other store. And then we realized we're not selling bagels by the dozen. It's an urban location. So we did not need 4,000 square feet. We need 800 at most. So the future of us is us looking at more urban centers where there is a huge demand for sandwiches. Like I said, our third-party store in that urban store at Bathurst, it does over $900,000 in third-party delivery, and it's 98% sandwiches. It's not bagels by the dozen, so it's not a high-ticket item. Yeah. So let's give that. That's what the customers, again, listening to the customers, that's what they want. They're telling you what it is. It's not a secret. You just have to be able to listen and dissect that operation and say, hey, let's make it smaller. Let's put them in certain pockets. We're exploring dark kitchen, which is a very unique concept. It allows you to be able to function and provide people the same quality products, very small footprint. You're managing it though. It's your people, unlike a ghost kitchen where it's somebody else's. And minimal operation, you're talking about one person, two people at most. And you can expect to see over $800,000 in revenue with like a 15% EBITDA.
2 employees.
2 employees. And the CapEx on it is super low, sub 50K.
So your ROI is within a year.
1 year.
Yeah.
And even in a worst case scenario, as we've judged it and looked at it, the worst concept that this dark kitchen has does $450,000 in revenue, and they have a 10% EBITDA. Even at that, you still have an ROI that's less than 2 years.
Yeah, no, that's great.
So it's don't be comfortable with what you were. You have to be able to adapt to what the market is. And that's another takeaway from COVID. If we all have to adapt, and we cannot stop adapting or evolving. And I think brands who fail to evolve, and I want to refocus that and say, never change the core of what you do, right? But evolve how you do it in terms of space or things that are going to get you better, like the training LMS platforms.
Which LMS platform do you like?
Opus is what we currently use, and we're very, very, very happy with it. It has been the best for us at this point in time. We think a lot about making things easy on the team, and that goes back to the training stuff. But you also have to make things easy for your guest, your customer. Right? And that's where, again, things kind of get lost. So don't inundate them with too much. Make the ordering process easy. So that's something we're doing. With our app, we launched a drive-through in Canada. That drive-through now does about 20% of our business. It's more so a test. Would we do it again? Drive-throughs in Canada are very hard to find. The government doesn't issue out a lot of permits to properties to be able to do that. And the ones that are grandfathered are gobbled up mostly by the RBIs and the McDonald's of the world. So it's interesting. And I think us working that here, when we go to expand into the United States, which I feel will happen, we can bring what we've learned in drive-through, because the American consumer is adapted and very educated in drive-through. So we're able to bring that to create the same seamless operation. Like, we can get you your food at a drive-through in under 5 minutes from the time you order to the time you receive it. And we're talking about made-to-order items. You're ordering a breakfast bagel, we're cracking an egg. We're toasting that bagel. We don't have, hot warming, holding units and whatnot. We're making things to order. So you want a Philly cheese that you see right behind me, that's made to order. In store, you're going to get that in about 4.5 minutes. I took my daughter to a sub shop. I won't say their name, but they're global. Okay. And she wanted a very simple, turkey on white. And for fun, I was like, let's see how long this takes. It was 5.5 minutes. There was nobody in the store. And they are making it there in front of us, right? But they didn't heat up the meat and whatnot. They're just laying things out. So I think we've been able to figure out how to get people great food, fast, that's honest. And I think that's been one of the keys to our success. And on top of that, like, bread goes back to biblical times. Jesus broke it at the table, right? I mean, bread has been bringing people together. And that's, again, another key to our success. Is common to see 3 generations at a table at our original stores in Ottawa. And that's why when I say Kettlemans is magical, right? There's not a lot of brands that could do that. At some point in time, it becomes passé. My father, the last McDonald's he ate was, I think in 99, he passed away about 20 years after that, but, he did not eat McDonald's up, because you get to an age where you grow out of that kind of food. But you never get tired of a bagel.
Yeah. Especially things that are made, from scratch. You guys are making high quality food still. So that's definitely still a thing. What you mentioned, customers, it's funny because customers need to feel smart when they use a brand, and you need to have like no friction in the process. What are some things that you guys do to make it easy for customers to be customers?
Accessibility, right? There's people who want to order on an app, right? So we provide that. There's people who want to order on a web page, right? So that's available. Then we have, 3 caches open at all times. Not necessarily 3 people on them, but when that line queue gets to 3 to 4 people, the team knows to ask for help. And we crush that line. And those 2 people who jumped on cash to take those orders, go back, wash hands, and then jump on the food service line to help in the production of a sandwich. So it's a really a full team effort. And the core, again, don't change it. Our number one selling sandwich has always been the breakfast bagel. It will always be the breakfast bagel. As of recent, we did a new version of it and we took out the bacon. So it went from real Canadian cheddar, egg, bacon, right? And our fantastically made bagel to just egg and cheese, because there's a lot of consumers who don't eat pork or don't want bacon. And we did that, and we were able to still offer the breakfast bagel as still being the number one. But this thing is creeping up into the top 5. And the margins, to be honest, the margins are great. But where can you get a fresh made, extra large egg, by the way, real cheddar cheese, not processed, for under $5?
No, it's good. I like it. We enjoyed it. My wife got the bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich. I had I think I had sesame with cream cheese, my go-to in the bagel business. So it was delicious, man. Hey, who are some of your mentors? I know you, so I know you're always learning, but like, who are some of your mentors? Some good tips, tricks? You mentioned PALS earlier. Like what kind? I mean, the PALS training has just had a profound impact on everything I do, not just my restaurants.
Huge. I used to go into life, and I even told my kids this when they're in grade school. I'm like, look, you aim for 100, but daddy's really happy with 95. And they're like, okay, daddy. And my kid would come home and they'd get their 96 or 95 and we'd all be happy. And I said, I'm going to bring that into the work world. And we preached that. And then I sat there, and PALS Excellent Institute in Tennessee, and they're like, what's one of your quotes? I'm like, you aim for 100, but you're happy with 95. They're like, so you want your business to do $10 million? Yes. Will you be happy if they did 9.5? I said, well, no, I'd be a little disappointed. Like, why did we miss it? He goes, but that's what you're telling them. You're telling them it's okay to fall short. If your goal is to hit 100, that's the goal. You should not be satisfied unless you hit 100%. And you should be hitting 100% 100% of the time. So transferring that to business, you're like, well, if I'm missing out by, $500,000 and it's a 10% EBITDA, I'm okay saying I'm going to lose 50,000 out of my jeans. That's not right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I took away from PALS. The other mentors, I'd say, one, don't stop learning. I think Patrick Lencioni has a great series of books. My number one book is 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. It truly transformed me as a leader. 2, I think your community. There's a lot of successful people within everybody's community. And I think, let alone our industry, I think we're the only industry where if people ask for help, we share it.
I agree.
We're happy. Yeah. We're happy to see, we don't look at somebody else as a competition. If they do good, we do good. Right. And we share it. And, for myself as well, as I was fortunate enough to be able to qualify to join YPO. Through that, I've met several people who are uber successful. And, like people who have had exits at, half $500 million exit, and somebody who walked away, at the end of everything with, 260 million and, in cash. That's real money. And being able to sit and ask them questions and to be transparent and vulnerable. You want people to trust you, and you want to be trusted, be willing to be vulnerable, and you will 10x yourself.
Yeah, no question about it.
You definitely will. And it's definitely helped me. And hey, I'm happy if you want, you can take my contact information and publicize, and I'd be happy to take a call from anybody out there and say, hey, go into more detail of all the trials and tribulations Not everybody wants to hear so many of the war stories.
I think that's where all the gold is, but I appreciate that. And so, I mean, I appreciate your willingness to let people reach out to you. Where do they find you? Where can people find you?
Amer Wahab on LinkedIn. If they want to email me, it's amer@kettlemans.com. So KETTLEMANS.com. And if they reach out to you directly, Dan, by all means, you have my personal mobile number. You can share that with them as well. Because look, I've leveraged that. I've called you. I've called some people that we know, Jeff and whatnot, and sit down with some of these great minds and not be scared to ask the question.
All right, man. Thank you so much. We've taken up an hour, but I appreciate your time. A lot of good insight. A lot to be proud of. You guys, I mean, you guys had there was dark days in COVID, and you came through it with flying colors, and you got the whole world in front of you. And I hope you open up in Scottsdale soon. You'll have one daily customer in me, two with my wife. She loves the place. But I appreciate it. So thank you very much. And listeners, appreciate you guys listening. If you like the episode, like it, share it. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Dan.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Smart Franchising with FranSmart. I'm your host, Dan Rowe. If you enjoyed today's episode, this podcast is only going to get better. Please like, comment, and subscribe to hear more from the most successful franchisors and franchisees, and we'll see you next time.